Hey guys, so I wanted to do a video like after school ended, so I had a lot more time to read. I wanted to do a video where I would read my physical TBR. So I want to talk about some of the books that I want to read this week that I'm hoping to finish, because before I move for college, I have like 10 books. I'm looking at them right now, I'll show you them later, but I have like 10 books that I need to read because I don't want to have to take books to college. So I feel like I just want to read them all now so I don't have to like worry about them. And a lot of them I've been meaning to read for a really long time because I usually don't prioritize my physical TBR very much because of all the library holds that I'm getting, and like I read mostly on the Libby app. So yeah, that is what I want to do for this video, and I have 2 books right now that I think I will definitely try and finish this week, and then I'll just choose like a random one from the shelf. But the one that I want to really try and finish, I'm literally like, I've been reading this book for so long and I did not anticipate that it would take me this long. But the book that I'm talking about is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Everyone knows this book. I feel like everyone on TikTok, on Instagram knows what I'm talking about, has read it before. And so far, I haven't seen many reviews, but from what I've heard generally, I think it's kind of polarizing. People are either like, this is so my cup of tea, like this is exactly what I needed, or people are just kind of really sick about how this is kind of like just fodder into the whole romantasy genre, and like it's really doing nothing new and it only exists because it knows that like people are gonna latch onto it. But for me, I bought this because I was genuinely like excited about it. I never buy a book thinking that I'm not gonna like it, because then why would I spend money on it? But I bought this and I didn't expect how long it took for me to read. Like, I think I've been reading it for like at least a week at this point, because I picked it up when school was starting and then I really quickly ran out of time and then I left it. At that point I was like maybe a fifth or a sixth of the way through, and then recently I picked up again because I was like, I need to finish all the books that I am part ways through. And then I think it's been like a week and I have this much left. So I want to say 2/3 of the way through. This is a long book, by the way. This is over 500 pages and I am on page 346. So I have like around 200 pages more that I need to read, and I'm not like angry that's long, but it just feels so much longer for a lot of reasons. But if you don't already know, Fourth Wing is a dragon YA romantasy book. It's about this girl named Violet, and in the world there are like different quadrants for what kind of career you want after you train in like each section. So I think there's like, I only know 2. It's literally the rider quadrant, which is all the people who are going to be like dragon riders and deployed in like the field, I guess they're from military, or the scribe quadrant, which is what Violet was in originally, where like you do a lot of archiving and you manage all of their documents. And Violet's whole family, like her mom is the general, she's basically like the number 1 of all the writers, and then her older siblings are very acclaimed and talented dragon riders. But Violet, being the youngest sibling, she was in the scribe quadrant, and then her and her dad had like a really close bond because both of them were the scribes of the family. But then her dad dies and then she gets put into the rider quadrant because her mother forced her into it. And basically what they have to do is like go through these trials, and through those a lot of the prospective riders die, and she's like, how am I gonna survive? Because they do like challenges where they have to fight each other, and they also have to meet with the dragons and like bond with them, which is really dangerous. So she's just going through all of that. And then at the same time there is also these people who, because there was like a rebellion in the past, and there are the sons and daughters of the like people who participated in the rebellion, and there's a lot of like tension between the people who are like the rebellions and like the normal people, I guess. And one of those sons of a rebellion person is this guy named Xaden, and there is like an obvious, I think it's literally in the blurb, enemies two lovers between the two, and it's just kind of like her going through the year and like trying to survive and growing as a person, because she was like, I was like a scribe, why am I suddenly being put into this whole new world? And how she's like smaller than everyone else, and how that's really hard for her because like she can't get on her dragon and whatever the hell. So that's basically it. Right now I feel like, okay, this might get into spoiler territory, but I'm just gonna do my thoughts on the book like as I'm reading it. I think that's what I want to do so I can remember it better. But right now, after reading 2/3 of the book, I feel like it goes by very slow unless you are like absolutely fiending every time you get like crumbs between Violet and Xaden, because there's a lot of them like interacting and doing that enemies to lovers trope where he's like basically he has a very strong power and he has a lot of authority because he's like the wing leader. So then he has all these people, like he can order them around and stuff, and a lot of people want to kill Violet because they think that she is a liability to the whole wing, because when they get dispatched, like if she's slower than them or if she just can't pull her weight, then like why is she here is what they're thinking. So people are trying to kill her, and he is like protecting her by sending these people, like has this dude who's indebted to him, and then he's like, okay, you're gonna be her bodyguard 24/7. But for me, it was so goofy because they constantly have this thing where he's like, so like you're so weak, like you're not gonna survive without me, and she's like, no, like, I can do it by myself. And then she literally gets herself in a situation like life or death, and then he saves her and she's like, well, I didn't need your help anyways. Like I feel like that just constantly happens so much. There's one big thing where, okay, I feel like if you want to read this book, maybe don't watch this, but if you have already read it or you just know you're not going to read it, I'm just going to explain what I'm talking about in extreme detail so I feel like it's more coherent. But basically she gets her own room because once they all bond with dragons, so she bonded with 2 dragons, which is like the first time that anyone has bonded with 2 dragons. They usually only bond with 1, so she's like already so special. So when she's sleeping, like these people who haven't bonded with dragons come in to kill her, because if they kill her, then the dragons will have to rebond and they can bond with like the people who haven't bonded yet. So they basically still want a chance to be a rider, and they feel that like Violet is unworthy, so they're gonna kill her. And they all gang up on her and like they're like trying to kill her and they're attacking her. And then Xaden comes to save her. And then after that, he's like, okay, so you definitely need security now. So then he sends this one dude who's like indebted to him due to something in the past that happened, named Liam. So now Liam is like leeched on to Violet 24/7. Like every time Violet goes to her room, like he's like right outside. He attends all of her classes. They always sit together. And she's like so snarky towards not Liam, but like I guess him as a byproduct, but like mostly Xaden. Okay, so now Xaden is assigning Liam to like hang out with Violet 24/7, and it's like Xaden says this, you do though, as we both learned last night, and I can't be everywhere you are. But Liam here, he points back to the blonde tire. He's a first year, so he can be in every class, at every challenge, and I even had him assigned to library duty. So I hope you get used to him, Sorengale. That's like Violet's last name. And then she's like, you're overstepping. Or okay, maybe I should be like this. But she says, you're overstepping. My nails bite into my palms. And he's like, you haven't begun to see overstepping. And then she's like, he is not sleeping in my room. And he says, of course not. I had him moved in the one next to yours, wouldn't want to overstep. And then that whole kind of thing just like continues where he does something because he's trying to protect her, and she's like, I didn't need a bodyguard. But like he literally is saving her, because she, like, when the dragons fly through the air, she has to like hold on with her legs, but then her legs are like too small for her gigantic dragon, so like the dragon has to do it magically to keep her in place. But then she constantly is like, no, I need to do it by myself, like don't waste your energy on keeping in place. So she's like falling every single time, and then he's like, the dragon is like catching her before, like this is her and this is the dragon, and the dragon's doing its stuff, and then she falls, and then now the dragon has to pick her up and like toss her back. And that happens like 7 times during like the flight training, and she's like, I only fell off sometimes. I feel like I know that her whole thing is wanting to kind of break out of what people have expected of her, as in like she's so small, she's weak. Like I know the point of her character is to show that like petite girls can be strong too, they can be independent. And I'm literally all for that, but I feel like the way that it's being done just makes her so unlikable. Like you can be independent and strong but still not be reckless. Like you can still accept help from others. I feel like it's pushing her too far into this caricature of like a little girl who's like, do not help me, and then miraculously dangerous things happen, and then she gets like brought back into that scene where she's like being helped against her will. I feel like that really just stunts Violet as a character, because I'm literally not even done, but I'm like 2/3 of the way through, but like it's happened so much and it just feels like she herself needs to either realize this, or like the author needs to allow her character to develop more, because it kind of just stunts, like both Xaden and Violet I think are stunted by this whole kind of, I don't know if it's a trope or like the whole purpose of her character right now, because they've become very 2D and their dynamic really hasn't developed very much, because she is constantly being like, I can't accept his help, I can do it myself, and then obviously she can't. Like it's not something she can control. Like at some points you have to realize that like you need help from others, and Xaden is giving her that help and she's just acting the same, and it just feels very repetitive at points. I feel like their relationship hasn't really developed. So all in all, I am not as into it as I would have wanted to be, but I am gonna finish it because I'm curious to see what has happened, because aside from the romance and Violet as a character, which to me, I don't know why I didn't jive with her, but the plot hasn't really progressed. There's been like little tidbits of stuff being sprinkled in while she's still in school, because at first the number one thing was that she had to survive, and like when people were trying to kill her she would have to find a way to, you know, keep going. But after she's done that and like now she's gotten her dragon, I feel kind of like bored a little bit. I just don't really know what plot I'm supposed to be like holding on to at this point, unless everyone is like obsessed with the romance, which is like not progressing very much honestly at 2/3. Just that like I guess it's time for the romance, even though there's like a little bit of political intrigue with like the censorship of what's really going on, where like more dragons are being needed because more villages are getting attacked. But other than that, I really don't see much happening at this point in the book. But maybe it's just because I'm not as like emotionally invested in these characters as I guess the author wanted like the reader to be, because not only with Violet I felt was very understandable, and at that point she became predictable. I feel like Xaden too, they both fit these archetypes that really are not new. Like Violet is the I guess like caring and sensitive female character who, despite her shortcomings of being smaller than everyone else, like wants to break out of her shell and show her true self, but she's also just like trying to hold on to her humanity, because like everyone's killing each other but she doesn't want to kill other people. And Xaden has like some trauma that's made him repress a lot of his emotions, but then like Violet is the only thing that will break through and like show his true self. And yeah, that's literally it. And then there's these like random little plot points that happen that push them closer and closer to each other against their will, and that's it, bro. I don't know, I feel like it's just nothing new that we haven't seen before, nothing new under the sun. But I don't know, I want to finish it so I can kind of get closure and figure out what the author was trying to do right now, because it feels a little discombobulated, I'm not gonna lie. But I don't know, I would just continue. I will stop talking because I've talked long enough, and I'm gonna read it. I hope to finish it today. And I'm also reading Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but this is very interesting, and I will talk about this later. But I'm also reading this as well. I'm like a fourth of the way through. Hey guys, so I finished Fourth Wing yesterday, and I wanted to write down some notes about why I didn't like it. So I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, and literally the last, oh, here's the book by the way. Literally the last part of like the last 2 chapters of the book, I was reading it and I actually felt like I was being rage baited. And technically there are like this section of the book, I thought it was still part of it, but then it's like bonus chapters from Xaden's perspective, and I'm not gonna read that because it doesn't like add anything. So I'm gonna still say that I finished it, even though there's like a little bit where it's like Xaden's perspective. Like, I don't care at this point. I have sat through over 500 pages of Fourth Wing, and I really was like crashing out while reading because I was like, I cannot believe the hype, because I think coming into this I had such high expectations because everyone was raving about it. It was very popular on Goodreads and TikTok, and then I had like those expectations and they did not meet them. But I want to split up my review and kind of like why I didn't like it into different sections. So the first one is the plot, which I think was really weird because I came into this thinking that it would be, yeah, it's like romantasy. So there's romance and fantasy, which in my brain equates there being like a fantasy plot but then also romance, because that's what I had been reading before. But this is like a romance book in a fantasy setting, because I was sitting there literally trying to figure out like, where is the plot going, because it's just Violet trying to survive the first year of like being a writer, and I guess that is kind of a plot, but it was just like her like struggling, and then Xaden would help her, and then she would like struggle, and they just like get more tasks, and it just felt really weird because I was like, where is the overarching plot? And it isn't until the very end where you even get any of that, and then even that just feels so disproportionate to the rest of the book that I was like, it just didn't convince me and even compel me, because I was like, I don't care. Like, I've sat through over 400 pages of this bizarre romance in a fantasy setting, and now you're putting in all the fantasy. I just didn't believe it, and I just couldn't get into it because it was like so late at that point. And I think world building is kind of weird because it was like, I just knew that she had to survive and go through like these different tasks, but then there would just be like these random tasks that come up. Like, there was no lore that made me go like, oh yeah, now it's time for like her to go, because she has like a dinner party with all of the like executives in the government and the general and her mom, and then she just goes to it, and it's like a yearly thing. But before that I had no idea like it was even gonna occur. Or they're like these war games that just randomly come up, and I was like, this is like a thing. It just felt very discombobulated because I was like, I didn't have any notion of what they were supposed to do except for survive and like get a dragon and then go into the front lines. But there were all these little things that just popped up seemingly conveniently because like the author wanted to do like an evening scene or like this romantic scene between Xaden and Violet. So then the plot and world building was just to aid that romance, and I didn't enjoy the romance. I'll talk about that next, but I was just saying how like everything just feels kind of surface level and only function to further the romance. And the biggest thing that disappointed me was the dragons, because literally the dragons are so obviously there just to make Xaden and Violet like not be able to stay away from each other. I feel like there's so, or maybe I just didn't read it as deeply as like other people have been, but like I feel that the lore with the dragons is so bizarre. I just didn't understand what was going on with them because it was barely explained. It's like there are a ton of dragons that are waiting, and some of them have like riders who died before, so now they have to bond again to the new cadets that are coming in. But then there's this rule, or there's just like this thing where if the rider die, or if the dragon dies, the rider dies. But then if the rider dies, then the dragon lives. And I was like, what is this logic? I just didn't really understand why things had to be the way that they were. Or then there's just like this very convenient thing where they're also mated dragons and they have to always be together. So then because of that, the riders always have to be together. Or like the things where they can talk into each other's heads. I don't know why. It just felt like the dragons only functioned so that Xaden and Violet could get together, which was a pity because I kind of wanted to know more about that lore, and then it just kind of fell flat for me. And then I also just don't understand why she had to bond to two dragons except for her wanting to be special. Like the little dragon, no hate, but the little dragon is low-key useless. Like it doesn't have its own identity except to make Violet more special and also to use its power. But it just, like, I just don't know why we had to make her so special. And yeah, so next I'll talk about the characters. They have like enemies to lovers thing, which thinking back, it honestly was so bizarre because I feel like the banter between them was so weird. It wasn't even like flirty. To me, it just felt like Violet was being rude to Xaden, because I might have already mentioned this before when I was like 2/3 of the way through, but there are a lot of attempted murders against Violet. So then Xaden like gets his, like the people who work under him to guard her, and then she's like, you're overstepping. And I don't know if it's supposed to be like tension between them or it's supposed to show how they're like enemies, but it just made me feel bad for Xaden because I was like, why is she being like this? Like it just felt awkward and weird. And I wrote some quotes down, and it's like Xaden says this to Violet, and then he's like, not at all, just one of the perks of not thinking too clearly. You have incredibly touchable skin. And then her perspective, the compliment makes me stuck in her butt. Like, what are you even saying? Like, this doesn't feel like chemistry. This feels so awkward for some reason. And I just couldn't get into it because it takes up so much of the book, because it's like the number one thing in my opinion is the romance between the two, and it just felt so bizarre and like stilted. So I just didn't get it, because she would always see him and be like, oh my god, he's so fine, like look at his muscles, he's so beautiful, but then she just like constantly did that. It just didn't have much development, and I feel like this obviously happens a lot in fantasy books. I feel like we get the same kind of formula, but I feel like this one, because it didn't do anything new, and I guess it wasn't trying to, I kind of wanted it to at least do it well, but it didn't, in my opinion. I don't know. I know that romance is subjective for a lot of people, so I can't really say. I can't really speak for everyone. And also, I forgot to add this, but the powers that they get, so after they bond to their dragon, like in the few months they're supposed to get powers, and Xaden has shadow powers, and then Violet gets like lightning powers, and honestly I just don't understand why they get the powers that they do, but they just get it. And the way those powers are used to further the romance, oh my god, if you have read this book, you know what I'm talking about, because the powers literally are so like freaky. The way that like in the romantic scenes, between these two, and then like her not being able to control her powers and like lightning. Like at one point she literally blows out his windows and then he like uses his shadow powers to protect the book. But I'm literally like, is that supposed to be hot? That just made me like, they out freaked me. That's so, I was reading it, I was like I cannot believe what I'm reading. And then this other time they're like getting together and they're literally like, he broke down, like he took the hinges off of her door and like they're shattering stuff all over the ground, and then she's like smashing lightning outside and he's like using the shadow powers to like spin around, and I was like what? It was just so weird and uncomfortable to read because it felt literally like bipolar. I don't know how to explain it. It was just, if you have read those scenes, please let me know if anyone actually liked them, because they just were so weird. And every time they would mention like her losing control and like smashing stuff with her lightning, I would just get taken out of the book and be like, I cannot believe what I'm reading. So there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and that is originality of this book, because after I finished it, I went to Goodreads and I was reading some reviews because I wanted to get other people's opinions, and I saw people were saying how it had so many similarities to other books, and I think to a certain extent that is okay, because like a lot of books have similarities to each other, but people were saying how this one was so similar that it was actually like a little suspicious. I haven't read them. They were talking about like Game of Thrones and Shadow and Bone, and I haven't read those, so I don't really know. But for me, when I read this, I was just reminded of How to Train Your Dragon, because it was literally kind of similar. It's like how Hiccup is an outcast and he is the one like to show mercy, and that's kind of similar to Violet because she's kind of from the scribe quadrant and she doesn't have like the brutality at the beginning as the rest of the writers. And then also how like they both bond to a really rare and then powerful dragon. They're like different from the rest. That to me reminded me a lot of How to Train Your Dragon. But in my opinion, I think just in general with like originality, I think that if you aren't gonna try and make something very new and out of the box like this one, I don't think it did anything new. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it was trying to though. But if you're gonna do something that other people have already done, at least make it good, because like these characters, this trope, like enemies to lovers, like the whole, like the characters fit the tropes so well and to such an extent that I feel like if they do, you at least have to make it like immersive. You have to make me feel like I am in the world, like I'm able to play along with these tropes. But it just couldn't even do that for me. And like the length of this book too, this is a long book. It doesn't look that thick, but it's like over 500 pages, and I just think that it should not be this long. Like I was just bored while reading it, secondhand embarrassment from both of the characters, and honestly just like out freaked by what they were doing. And yeah, and there's like a plot twist at the end. I don't want to mention it, but that literally was my last straw, because I was like, there's no evidence. Like you can't be pulling this out of thin air and expecting everyone to be like, oh my god, like massive plot twist. I was just disappointed, even though I was like, what? But I also just couldn't see how we as readers were supposed to do it, and it just felt really cheap. Yeah. So to all the people who love this online, I'm sorry, but I'm not one of them, and I really did want to love it because I bought it, and I usually don't buy my books. But I do not think that I will be continuing the rest of the series. I think it's like a 4 or 5 book series. Yeah, I'm not gonna be continuing this, but that is my review slash rant. I don't think I explained it very nicely, but those are my thoughts on Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I will say that if you do not read a lot of YA fantasy or romantasy, this would probably seem a lot better to you, but it's because like fantasy is one of the most popular genres for me that I read, so then I've read a lot, so I could just like see the tropes, I could see the similarities to other series, so then that kind of took me out of it. But if this is like your first time and you just want to delve into the genre, honestly, this is not that bad. I would recommend trying it. All in all, I give this a 2 out of 5, but I'm glad that I have read it because I've had it on my TBR for a long time. Hey guys, so I also wanted to update you on the progress of Drive Your Plow or the Bones of the Dead, because last time I think I mentioned that I was also reading it, but I didn't really speak about what it was about. So I want to do that. And also I'm like, I want to say 40% of the way through. It's a pretty short book. It's like around 250 pages, but this is pretty popular, I think, because it, not this book, but like she won the Nobel Prize in 2019. But I don't know. And then I've been seeing this book around, so I was intrigued because it is about a murder mystery, but it's kind of like also a fiction novel that brings up different topics like animal cruelty and injustice against marginalized people, animal rights, traditional religion, belief in predestination. And it sounded very interesting to me, so I picked it up. I also really like what publisher is this, because it's so chic. Like the whole book is blue. I don't know. And then I like the little, yeah, the texture there is really cute. But this is, I want to say, right now feels more fiction than murder mystery. If you're thinking about like the mystery books that have been coming out recently, like Lisa McFadden's, or I guess Stephen King, or just like the thrillers that people have been talking about, I think this is more fiction. It has some feeling of suspense. I feel like right now it is about this old woman, Janina Dushchenko. I'm just gonna say Janina because I don't want to butcher the name that I already have, but this old woman named Janina who lives in this Polish village, and she is a very interesting woman. It says that she's like eccentric, she really prefers animals to people, she's passionate about animal rights, and there's these group of men, or just like a lot of the men in the village like to hunt recreationally, and she feels really strongly against that. So she's like always coming to the police station and being like, there's literally like a dead boar at this location, like who killed it, you need to file a report. And people really aren't taking her seriously, and she's kind of seen as like a mad woman in the town because she lives alone, she doesn't have any children, grandchildren, and generally in the neighborhood there's only like one other person who she calls oddball. So I feel like there's some very unique characters right now, and there have been a few deaths. It already says at the back, this is not a spoiler, but it's like when members of a local hunting club are found murdered, she becomes involved in the investigation, and this is by no means a conventional crime story. So I'm intrigued to see kind of where it plays out, because right now the people have died and she doesn't really care in like figuring out how they got murdered traditionally. She's kind of just like, well, you know, the animals could have killed him, he could have fallen, and she's still going about her day. And there's kind of talk about like astrology and what her belief system is in terms of how animals are treated, animal cruelty. It's very interesting and it's very atmospheric. I feel like I can just imagine the rural town and just how everything's like covered in snow and it's very isolating. And I feel like the ball is about to drop at some point and the action will continue, or like the suspense will reach a certain point and the tension will just snap. Right now, I don't think it's very tense. It's kind of more, not philosophical, but like Janina, she likes to ramble about like whatever's on her mind, and the way that the author writes about it is very interesting. And even though I kind of don't know all the big words that are being used, I have been enjoying it. I read like a chapter at night and I think it's been good. It just kind of right now is like a slice of life about plots are coming up, but also at the same time, like these people are getting killed and or just like being found murdered or dead. Yeah, I like it. I just am intrigued to find out what happens next, so I'll keep you posted. And it's also, I didn't mention this, but this is translated by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. So that is what I have so far. Hey guys, so I wanted to talk about Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead before I finished it because I have 2 chapters left. This is how much I have left, and I wanted to talk about like my thoughts right now. So in the beginning I said that I wasn't completely like as immersed in the story just because I think the writing style is more rambly and character based instead of being very like plot driven. Like it's not all about the mystery when all the hunters start dying, it's also about Junina's identity and like just her day-to-day life, and she talks about like her job, taking care of the neighbors' houses, or like when she's helping her friend translate William Blake. So there's kind of a lot that you get to know about her, but at the same time there's like a mystery going on in the background which sometimes pops up, and I was kind of like not really immersed in the part where we learn about Gina. I was more here just for the mystery. But as I read more, I feel like I became more invested in her as a character, and that's what made it so much better because I feel like I can kind of like understand the writing style or like, get into the flow of the story a lot more as I continue to read it. And there's just so many like intriguing conversations and just lines of thought that she has because it's meant to be written as if Janina had written this book herself, because like the way she writes a letter to the police and the way that she writes it is exactly how the book is written. So I guess we're reading this as if she wrote it because they're like very unique capitalizations. Like she capitalized the word animals and a lot of different just normal nouns and turns them into proper nouns. But there's so many good quotes. I was reading this and literally like every 5 pages I was taking pictures and noting down the quotes because I feel like it talks about so many interesting different topics, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I did because I usually don't like this because like I feel like when I read, my reading comprehension is not intended to like understand a deeper meaning. I feel like when people read books and they're like, oh my god, I understand like this theme of whatever and like all the nuances, I feel like when I read, I low-key do not think that hard, which is probably my own issue. But this book, even though I was not like actively digging for deeper meanings and everything that was going on, I still kind of like grasped what the themes were trying to tell us. I really like the book so far. There is one big twist. If you read it, you already know. And I was honestly kind of confused because I feel like this book does more showing and not telling. So you have to kind of use your brain because at times I was like, what is going on? But then the more I read, the more it made sense. I'm gonna finish the last 2 chapters. I think we kind of already resolved it a bit, but yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. I really like it. I don't want to rate it like right now before having finished it, but I feel very optimistic about this book. So I've now finished Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, and I'm gonna try to keep it brief because I know I've been talking a lot about it and I feel like it's been very discombobulated what I've said, but I want to say that I'm giving it a 4 to 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I definitely do want to continue reading the rest of her work, and I would say that I would recommend this to you if you want to read some fiction with like a mystery side plot. I saw some people calling it like noir. I don't really know what that like genre is, but I would say that if it sounds interesting to you, it's like set in a Polish village. It's very much like a wintry slash fally. There's a lot of snow. It's very wet and dreary, and everyone is kind of isolated, and you feel very like trapped in her thoughts with herself, and like kind of trapped in a small town and these opposing worldviews, like can hunters kill these animals and the animals enacting revenge on the hunters. So there's like a lot of different very interesting themes going on. I think the portrayal of Janina is very interesting because she's kind of like one of the only two women, I want to say, that we hear the most about. The rest of them are men, like even all her friends, and I think that's a pretty interesting dynamic because like they all feel like they respect each other, and I like the dynamics between the characters. It's very interesting, pretty short. I don't know if right now is the best time to read it if you really want to get super immersed, but for me, I kind of wish that I read this like November or honestly even December. So that is Drive Your Plow or The Bones of the Dead. I am so glad that I read this. It's definitely gonna stick with me. I feel like I still think about some of the quotes, so I'm very happy with this.